What's up, Playmakers? I'm your host, Lily Hennick, and we have a packed show this week. We missed you guys last week, but we are back. Starting off the show today with some breaking news and heading right into our Rock Chalk Rewind. We have a football recap of KU's football season, and the boys are back at the roundtable with a look at the college football playoffs. All that and more with basketball, including the women's basketball tournament controversy that happened last week. We have a World Cup update for you guys, along with a look into the MLB free agency. Gus is back with his high school roundup, and we have a 2-minute warning on KU basketball's longtime announcer's retirement. All this and more coming up ahead, but stay tuned, Playmakers, because it's showtime. Here we go. Hello everyone and welcome back. Per usual, we are going to start off the show today with some breaking news. Longtime NFL quarterback John Hadel, who starred for his hometown Kansas Jayhawks before embarking on a professional career that included 6 Pro Bowl appearances and an All-Pro nod, died on Wednesday. He was 82 years old. Athletic Director Travis Goff said, quote, "John Hadel had a generational impact on Kansas football. He was a once-in-a-lifetime Jayhawk student-athlete, a coach, a mentor, and a prolific fundraiser who developed profound relationships for countless people and was the ultimate ambassador for KU. Hadel was a 2-star sport at Lawrence High School, but made his name on the football field for the Jayhawks. He led the NCAA in punting as a sophomore, set a record for the longest punt of 94 yards that still stands, and until 2007, he held the record for longest interception with a 98-yarder. Hadel played both halfback and quarterback, his final 2 seasons helping Kansas go 14-5-2 over the span. The 2-time All-American finished his career by leading the Jayhawks to their first bowl win against Rice in the 1961 Bluebonnet Bowl. Hadel was chosen 10th overall by the Detroit Lions in the 1962 NFL Draft and 24th overall by the San Diego Chargers in the AFL Draft, where he chose to pursue his career. Hadel would go on to spend 11 seasons with the Chargers, taking them to 3 AFL title games before the merger with the NFL, finishing his career with the Packers, Rams, and Oilers. After retiring in 1977, Hadel returned to Kansas as an assistant, helping the Jayhawks to the 1981 Hall of Fame Bowl. He later coached for the Rams, Broncos, and the Los Angeles Express of the USFL before returning to Kansas in 1988, where he would spend the next 30 years as a prolific fundraiser for the Williams Education Fund. Hadel's number 21 is one of 3 numbers retired by Kansas, along with number 48 of Gale Sayers and number 42 of Ray Evans. In 2020, KU celebrated his legacy by unveiling a statue of Hadel outside of the Anderson Football Complex. Head coach Lance Leipold said, quote, "To be head coach of this program and see the statue every day outside of Anderson Family Football Complex is a firm reminder of the passion and love that John had for this program. On behalf of our cast, crew, and KU, we are grateful for the impact Hadel left, and he will be remembered."
Thank you, Lily. We have some big things to talk about in Kansas sports this week, so let's jump right in. I'm Carson Shea, and this is the Rock Chalk Rewind. Let's get started by talking about last night's big win for the men's basketball team. The Jayhawks played Seton Hall Pirates in the Allen Fieldhouse in won convincing fashion, 91-65. The defense was proven to be too strong for Seton Hall, with Kansas notching 15 steals on the game. It was a well-rounded win for the Jayhawks with 6 players in double digits. The men's basketball team squares off in the Border War on December 10th when they travel to Columbia to face the currently undefeated Missouri Tigers. Speaking of undefeated, the Kansas women's basketball team is off to a remarkable 6-0 start. The Jayhawks played the Texas A&M Aggies on Wednesday night in Allen Fieldhouse and dominated. Holly Kerskeeter led Kansas to a 74-42 dub behind her season-high 23 points. Although it was a slow start for both teams, Kansas would not let off the gas once they got hot, leading to their biggest margin of victory so far this year. Let's move over to women's volleyball because yesterday was absolutely awesome for the team. Kansas faced Miami in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Not only did the Jayhawks beat the Hurricanes, but they swept them 3-0. All 3 sets were won by 5 points or more, with Kansas holding the momentum strong the whole match. The women's volleyball team is now 8-3 in the first round of the NCAA tournament all time, following Wednesday night's victory. Next up for women's volleyball is a matchup against Nebraska tonight at 7 p.m. in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Well, that will do it for this week's edition of the Rock Chalk Rewind. With more on women's volleyball, let's serve it over to the one and only Sydney Clark.
It is an exciting time for KU volleyball after they defeated their first round of the NCAA tournament to the number 7 ranked team in the country, the University of Miami, for the second consecutive advancing after their Sweet 16 finish last season in the tournament. The team has had a remarkable season so far, with Caroline Banner recording 500 career kills
and Kennedy Ferris reaching her 1,000th career dig. The team finished with an 8-8 record in the Big 12 and 18-10 overall. The University of Kansas and head coach Lance Leipold have agreed to terms on a new contract that includes an extension through the 2029 season. Leipold has revived the Kansas Jayhawks program in just his second season here in Lawrence, leading Kansas to a 6-6 record this season and their first bowl game since 2008. This is Leipold's second extension this season. KU announced a previous extension through the 2027 season in September. The commitment to Leipold, who is averaging $2.75 million annually on his initial 6-year deal when hired in 2021. This is an indicator of Kansas's surge in commitment to the football program. In October, KU announced a stadium overhaul project and other facility improvements that are expected to cost more than $300 million. The deal is also structured to keep Leipold in Lawrence for the long term, as his name has been linked to open jobs at both Nebraska and Wisconsin over the past few months. Not only did Leipold get a contract extension, but has emerged as a candidate for the 2022 Eddie Robinson Award, which is presented to the National Coach of the Year in college football's Division I. As the Jayhawks finish their season, they anxiously await to see if they are selected for a bowl game this Sunday during the bowl selections. Now for more on the season recap and bowl projections, let's head over to Namdi.
While Kansas football might have finished the season 1-5 after their 5-game win streak, the Jayhawks still clinched a spot to be in a bowl game this December. We finally have something to wave some wheat for football-wise, and the Jayhawk faithful will definitely travel and show out to wherever the bowl committee decides to place us. I'm Namdi Onyanike, and let's recap the season, what needs to be tidied up, and where the Hawks will be playing in a few weeks. Now, Kansas secured bowl eligibility after taking out Oklahoma State 37-16 on November 5th. In between that stretch, though, KU had a barn burner against TCU, losing by a single score, and 2 losses against Oklahoma and Baylor, squads who were not as pretty as they had been years prior. I was hopeful this win against Oklahoma State and securing a bowl spot would not get to the heads of the players, but the forthcoming weeks saw tough losses to Texas Tech, Texas, and Kansas State. That one hurt. The defense was not so pristine, as they had been a huge factor in our game over Iowa State. The secondary, they got to snap into place. Jacoby Bryant went down with a lower body injury against OU, but returned not too long after. O.J. Burrows, Romello Dotson, and the leader of that troop, Kenny Logan, need to be sharp and make the plays on the ball that we know they're capable of. Jalen Daniels returned against Texas, and while he needed a game to get back on his feet, he looked excellent in the first half against Kansas State. But Coach Leipold, do not think, should stray away from using Jason Bean, who's shown he can be capable regarding the situations. Throwing duties should not be a huge emphasis, but if an opposite defense is expecting Bean to use his feet, if a screen or unsuspected corner doesn't drop back, let it fly, Bean. The offense has many options and is far from one-dimensional. Mason Fairchild blossomed into a key offensive piece. In fact, the entire tight end room, including Jared Casey and Trevor Cardell, has made some spectacular plays this season. Devin Neal proved to be more than an on-the-ground threat, and our receivers have made jump balls possible time and time again. If everyone can keep it close and really grind until late December, I like our odds of bringing home some bowl hardware. So let's close out with my bowl prediction. And let me say, if you're attending, you're going to want some sunscreen because the Guaranteed Rate Bowl will feature a Big 12 team and a Big 10 team in Phoenix, Arizona. And right there, it already gets me hype. Last year's face-off saw the 9-4 Minnesota Gophers take down the 6-7 West Virginia Mountaineers. Now, they might award the better-seeded 7-5 Texas Tech Rebels, but West Virginia's record last year is close to ours this year. And I mentioned before, the Jayhawk community, they travel decently well. This historic landmark in our program's history will definitely boost our fan numbers at Chase Field. Some potential opponents could be 6-6 Wisconsin. The 7-5 Terps could also be our last test. The committee selects on Sunday, so don't miss out to see where the Hawks end up. It's been a great semester. Now the Gents have a roundtable discussing how the playoffs would look post-championship Saturday.
Welcome back to Roundtable with Reed. And fellas, we have made it to Conference Championship Week. It's been a long college football season, but a fun college football season. And when you look at these Conference Championship games, there's really only two that matter. But so let's get into it. The first game that kind of matters, quote unquote, is number 3 TCU taking on number 10 Kansas State. Blake, K-State obviously an underdog in this game, but how can they win this game and upset TCU?
Honestly, I don't know if they can upset TCU in this one, but here's the X factor for K-State if they do want to win this game. His name is Deuce Vaughn.
Totally.
When K-State played TCU the first time, he only had 12 carries. You give him the ball 20 to 25 times, he's going to make something happen. We saw it last week when they played Kansas. I mean, Deuce Vaughn's one of the best running backs in the Big 12, and they got to utilize his skill set. I mean, he's good out of the backfield. He's good running the ball. If TCU is going to lose this game and K-State's going to pull off the upset, Deuce Vaughn's got to be good, and they got to slow down Max Duggan.
True, but Bez, obviously TCU the favorite. What do they have to do to keep things of course? And it's a win and you're in situation. They're in a college football playoff. They win this game.
I think TCU should be in no matter what, unless K-State boats racing by 3 touchdowns. I think TCU is locked in their spot. But for them, they really need Kendre Miller to continue to be really good. Kansas State has a very good run defense, but the last time they matched up, Miller still averaged 5.3 yards a touch and had 2 touchdowns, and Duggan still played great. This TCU offense is going to need to be what rolls for them because I think Will Howard with Kansas State, I don't know how either of these teams are going to be stopped the other offensively. Will Howard came in the second half, 13 to 20, 225, 2 touchdowns. That's just in one half, and he's been rolling with this K-State offense all year. I'm surprised they haven't gone to him sooner, but he's looking really good for the Cats right now.
And speaking of offense, these two teams know how to put up a lot of points. It's Utah and USC. That game is tonight, by the way.
Yes, it is.
USC, pretty much, you win, you're in as well. Blake, how does USC get it done tonight?
USC is going to get it done by this guy named Caleb Williams. If you've heard of him, I'm assuming you have. Probably going to win the Heisman.
Not too bad.
I mean,
he's pretty good at football.
Absolutely lights out the last couple weeks. Totally. He's thrown for 3,700 yards. But in this one, I think Utah's going to upset and win this game. I'm going to go off the beaten path a little bit. I think Cam Rising is an unbelievable football player.
He's a great quarterback.
I mean, he almost beat Ohio State himself in the Rose Bowl last season.
Oh, yeah.
When big games come, Cam Rising steps up to the plate.
He's rising.
He's rising, absolutely. Utah beat USC once this year. I know it's hard to beat a team twice, but let's see if it happens again.
Bez, where are you on this? Because I know it's hard to beat a good football team twice.
The winner of this game is going to be the team that plays the closest thing resembling defense.
True.
Last time these two teams matched up, over 800 passing yards in the entire game. 800. That's ridiculous. So who gets stops? That's who's going to win this game. USC, in my opinion, has to win to get in. I think right now, you look at USC 11-1, you look at Ohio State 11-1. I actually like Ohio State's resume better than USC's.
I do too.
So if USC drops tonight, I think that's just a free path for Ohio State to get in. So USC is going to have a huge chip on their shoulder coming in, especially they've had this game circled. They wanted Utah. They want revenge for that one loss they've had. I like the Trojans.
You like the Trojans? I'm going to go with USC.
I like the Trojans.
Blake, you're still going with Utah.
Stepping off the beaten
They have the
path
best player in the
bit.
country.
I'm riding
with him.
I totally think Caleb Williams should run away with this Heisman. Thank you, guys. It's been a great semester at this roundtable. Hopefully we get to do it again. But after the break, Kristen will have us with some women's basketball controversy. Stay with us.
Knocks it down from distance. MP's got 12, and a big question mark for MP.
Do you remember the 2021 Women's College Basketball Final Four? If you don't, maybe this will jog your mind. Weight room scandal. After a video on social media went viral by Oregon Duck star Sedona Prince, many were mad at the NCAA. The women's teams only had a pile of yoga mats and a sad-looking rack of dumbbells, while the men had it all. I'm not here to hash up the past too much, but it seems the NCAA took a few steps back over this Thanksgiving break. The Las Vegas Invitational had 10 teams playing in the tournament. The teams were Auburn, Colorado State, Indiana, Memphis, Mercer, Missouri State, MTSU, St. John's, and UTSA. In a city full of glitz and glam, there seemed to be no glitz or glam for this tournament. Photos and videos again went viral after seeing that the teams were playing in a hotel ballroom. Number 6 Indiana head coach Terry Morin said, "What was disappointing was the aesthetics. It's not a fan-friendly environment. As women's basketball coaches, we're trying to move our game forward. It felt like because this got so many ticks on social media that we had taken a couple steps backward. We have an obligation to grow our game, and we completely missed on this opportunity." Coach Morin had a lot to say about how social media took this out of hand. One of the concerns is that the court was unsafe, but Morin laid that rumor to rest, saying it was just fine. Ballroom or not, though, these women's teams continue to fight as the season is kicking into high gear. And with more on our KU women's basketball team, let's hand things over to Kara.
KU women's basketball is continuing their dominance on the court as they remain undefeated for the season. Over Thanksgiving break, Kansas got the job done in the St. Mary's Thanksgiving Classic in beating Maine 76-49. To add on the victory, Zakiya Franklin led Kansas with the season best of 21 points and reached a huge milestone in her career, scoring her 1,000th career point. The Jayhawks also played St. Mary's, beating them 73-53, with Tiana Jackson scoring a career high of 24 points and 10 rebounds. With that performance, Jackson is the only Division I player this season to have 24 points, 10 rebounds, 5 blocks, and 2 assists in a single game. Wednesday was the first time since 2003 the Jayhawks beat Texas A&M and broke their 11-game losing streak to the Aggies. Both teams kept it close, finishing out the first half with Kansas leading 32-26. While the Jayhawks didn't play their best the first half, they made a quick turnaround and outscored the Aggies 42-16 in the second half and beat Texas A&M 74-42. Holly Kersgeter found her groove this game and led the Jayhawks with 23 points on the night, shooting 4 for 10 from the three.
All year, I just think she had made threes, and I think sometimes we get focused on a player's maybe one area of their game, and 3-point shooting can be up and down, and good shooters have to just keep shooting, and but I do think that her defensive mindset was really good, and when you defend and rebound, I think good things happen for you on the offensive end.
Kersgeter went after it on the defensive end, finishing with 9 defensive rebounds and 3 steals. Tiana Jackson had an outstanding performance as well, with her 4th double-double within the last 6 games, scoring 16 points and getting 11 rebounds. Zakiya Franklin finished with 15 points, followed by Wyfette Mayberry with 10 points. The Jayhawks look to continue their winning streak when they play against Southeast Missouri State on Sunday at 2 p.m. in Allen Fieldhouse. Thanks, Kara, for that update. Women's basketball is on a hot streak right now, but so are the men. KU improved 8-1 on the year after a 91-65 statement win over Seton Hall last night. 2 big question marks this season have been KU's bench presence and who the reliable big men are going to be. Before last night's game, Bill Self said KU's bench needs more active because Joe Yesufu was providing the only spark off the bench for several games. Especially with Bobby Pettiford being banged up, other guys need to step up. But last night, there were 6 Jayhawks in double figure, and the big men really stepped up for KU. KJ Adams and Ernest Uday combined for 21 points, but Bill Self says they still have room to grow.
Everyone talks about defensive awareness, knowing where your man's at all times, but I feel like there's also need to be an emphasis on offensive awareness. If I'm coming off a screen, reading if a certain man's helping, who's going to be open on which cut, which drive. So I just feel like tonight we really had that.
But they can become better screeners, better rim runners after they set a screen, and certainly better ball screen defenders and better paint protectors. And that's what I would say. Just focus on those 4 things, and they can be really good players. And they will. But right now, I feel like that we're closer than we were, but we still got a ways to go on that.
KJ Adams has been playing in the 5 spot a lot this season, and he brings both speed and skill to the paint, but his length is sometimes problematic, which is why the younger guys like Ernest and Zuby Ejiofor need to grow in their roles. Self says KU is not going to be able to play through anyone in the post like they did last year with David McCormick, but having those 2 freshmen play well give KU much needed in the depth underneath. Next up, KU travels to play Mizzou and then returns home to face Indiana and Harvard before conference play starts. Courtney is here to break down what we've seen from the team so far this year. So Courtney, take it away.
The Jayhawks have kicked off their season with an 8-1 record, with 100% of these matchups being non-conference. This has not only given the guys a chance to blend as a team before things get tough, but it has also allowed the newcomers to earn their spot in the lineup. There is no doubt that this team is unique. Coming off of a championship with hopes to go back-to-back is something that no other team in the country can say is their goal this season. And what's going to assist in solidifying that back-to-back title? The starting 5. The starting lineup has been almost identical for all 9 games, with Jalen, Grady, KJ, and DeJuan securing their spot. Kevin McCullough has started 8 out of the 9 of the games, but was out that 8th game due to a groin injury. Taking a look at this lineup, who stands out? First of all, Jalen, KJ, and DeJuan are the 3 returners in the starting 5. It takes a champion to know what it takes to be a champion. They have established a sense of leadership and dominance on the court. KJ is kind of that glue player. He can rebound, he can make plays, he can definitely execute them. Juan has been labeled as one of the best college point guards in the country. He is a lead playmaker, and honestly, there's no one else I think that this team would rather have as their guard. Jalen has the most minutes on the team, rightfully so, with 305 so far. And he's obviously using that time wisely, with an average of 21.9 points per game, 9.3 rebounds, and 3.3 assists. These 2 guys have put the team on their back to do everything in their power to secure their 2023 natty. Kevin McCullough is exactly what this team needed. Being a transfer from Texas Tech, he gives this team a little more experience, not only with college basketball in general, but specifically in the Big 12 bracket. Having seen the conference from a different angle for 3 years, and especially knowing Texas Tech's strengths and weaknesses, I think going forward as they take on conference matchups, this is going to be a huge advantage. Moving on, it's undeniable that Grady Dick has already begun to make his mark throughout the first few games as a freshman. He provides an energy spark for not only his teammates, but fans as well. Grady has proven that he can shoot from all areas of the court and is already being talked about as a round 1 pick in NBA mock drafts. Being a freshman, this is nuts, but his stats back up all the hype. Looking back on some of these non-conference games, it's clear that rebounding is a struggle for the team. I'm not sure if I'd classify our height as a huge problem, but let's just say some of our competitors have taller and bigger guys.
But as far as effort and activity and things like that, I actually thought it was good. The thing that hurt us against Tennessee wasn't our defense, it was our rebounding.
That being said, in that game, which was our only loss of the season, Tennessee had 40 rebounds and we had 26. Going forward, it'll be exciting to see how this team comes together against some more serious matchups. Right now, with players like Bobby out with injuries, it's essential to use the talent we have healthy and available to capitalize on every opportunity we're given. After the break, we'll be back with Lily and her fantasy suite.
Everyone, it's been a while since we visited the Fantasy Suite, but I am back this week, and I hope everyone's fantasy football seasons are going well, because I don't know about you guys, but I get way too invested and competitive when it comes to fantasy football. So you can imagine my frustration when I lost by 1 singular point last week to our amazing Professor Cal, and I'm sure I won't hear the end of that one from him. Anyways, to avoid single-digit losses and those players with that red questionable status lit up next to their name, let's see who's available on the waiver wires. And let's start with quarterbacks. And up first, we have the absolute legend, Mike White, for the New York Jets. I think it's safe to say White surpassed expectations against the Bears last week, scoring 24.8 fantasy points, and he was only the 2nd quarterback in league history to have at least 75% completion. 300 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns in his first 4 career starts, joining Kurt Warner. White has unlocked the Jets' offense, and he can be considered a QB2 with upside against a Vikings defense this week who has allowed the 5th most points to quarterbacks in fantasy. Another quarterback here to consider is Deshaun Watson for the Cleveland Browns. Watson did serve an 11-game suspension without pay after he was accused by more than 24 women of sexual misconduct during massage sessions. He is now eligible for return in Week 13 and is expected to start against the Texans, making him an option for anyone who is lacking a set-it-and-forget-it QB option, as well as being potential insurance policy for fantasy managers in 12 to 14 league teams. Watson averaged 22.7 fantasy points per game over his career and could quickly work his way into streaming starter conversation, especially given this solid matchup. All right, one more suggestion I have for you guys, and it's Isaiah Pacheco for the Kansas City Chiefs. Over the past 3 games, Pacheco has scored double-digit fantasy points twice and accumulating 258 rushing yards on 53 rushing attempts during that period. Pacheco should see significant touches, while Clyde Edwards-Helaire is on the injury reserve because of a high ankle sprain. Pacheco can be viewed as a running back 2 against the Bengals this weekend. Well, that's all I have for Fantasy World.
Our Playmakers Fantasy League has been so fun this year, but now we've got a different kind of football to focus on, the World Cup. The U.S. escaped the group stage after their narrow 1-0 win against Iran on Tuesday with a winning goal from number 10, Christian Pulisic. Lily will have more on that winning goal at the end of the show, but I'm here to talk about the game we have coming up tomorrow morning. The U.S. has officially made it to the knockout portion of the tournament, beginning with the round of 16. The national team hasn't been to the round of 16 since 2014, where the iconic team featuring Tim Howard, Clint Dempsey, and Josie Altidore lost to Belgium in a disappointing 2-1 extra time loss. Thankfully, the tournament favorite Belgium has already been eliminated from the tournament this year due to a loss to Morocco and a tie with Croatia, but the U.S. has a whole new opponent to face in the round of 16 this time around, the Dutch. The U.S. and the Netherlands have only met on the pitch 5 times, beginning with their first meeting in 1998. The U.S. has a 1-4-0 record against them, and although they've suffered 4 losses out of those 5 games, their most recent encounter ended in a thrilling U.S. comeback to win the game back in June of 2015. This will be the first competitive match between the two, as their previous meetings were all just international friendlies. But the history goes a little beyond 1998 because U.S. men's national team head coach Greg Berhalter learned practically everything he knows about coaching soccer in the Netherlands as a player. From the 4-3-3 formation to the speedy wingers and defenders who push up on the attack, Greg Berhalter still uses many of the basics he learned in Holland all those years ago, and it's the first time he's getting to put them to the test against the country he once called home. The U.S. men's national team will need to keep a close eye on emerging Dutch star Cody Hopko at the winger position. He scored the first goal in each of the Netherlands group stage games, and with 3 goals scored out of the 5 shots he's taken so far this tournament, it's safe to say he's shooting accurate. One slip-up with him from the U.S. could be costly, and at 6'4" and 170 pounds, it's going to be a challenge to keep him off the ball. The game will kick off tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central at Khalifa International Stadium. The Dutch are the favorites for this game with a 51% chance of being on top at the end of the 90 minutes, while the U.S. only has a 21% chance. Analysts are also predicting a 28% chance of a draw at the end of the 90 minutes, which, if that's the case, the game would then go into extra time. Be sure to tune into Fox tomorrow morning for the do-or-die game that could either end the United States' journey at the World Cup or send them to the quarterfinals for the first time since 2002. That's all I've got, but Chad Cushing is here in studio to update us on MLB free agency.
Thanks, Emily. The USA may be making a splash across the pond, but for now, it's time to talk about America's true pastime, baseball. The winter meetings start tomorrow back in sunny San Diego, and the best way to keep warm out here in Lawrence is by sticking close to the hot stove. Let's check in on this year's class of free agents. Some notable names decide to stick around with their current teams, including Martin Perez, Jock Peterson, Robert Suarez, Anthony Rizzo, and Edwin Diaz. Diaz is now the owner of the richest contract ever for a reliever, with his $102 million deal set to keep him closing games out in Queens until 2027. One of the most intriguing new signings was Mike Clevinger heading to the Chicago White Sox on a 1-year, $8 million deal. After missing all of 2021 recovering from his second Tommy John surgery, Clevinger returned to the mound for the Padres and logged 22 starts, posting a pedestrian 4.33 ERA. His near 5 FIP doesn't suggest much improvement going forward, but the White Sox are giving the former budding talent one more chance to prove his worth. As for the rest of the new signees, all the action is out west. The Anaheim Angels were wheeling and dealing in November, signing 2022 All-Star lefty Tyler Anderson and trading for bats Gio Urshela and Hunter Renfroe. Despite featuring the 2 best players in the sport, the Angels have yet to find a winning formula capable of snapping their 7-season-long playoff drought. With Shohei Ohtani on a 1-year deal and the transfer of ownership looming over the team, the Angels are truly in a make-or-break scenario. Ready for some news no baseball fan wanted to hear? The defending World Series champs just got even better. On Monday, the Astros signed 2020 AL MVP Jose Abreu to a 3-year deal with $60 million.
The durable slugger has only missed 18 games in the past 4 seasons and will join L MVP Jose Altuve, All-Star Game MVP Alex Bregman, and World Series MVP Jeremy Pena in the Astros infield. The Crawford boxes are trembling just looking at those 4. The stove is cooking without a doubt, and the winter meetings commence with big names like Aaron Judge, Jacob deGrom, Carlos Correa, Trey Turner, and Justin Verlander still unsigned. This is a free agent class for the history books. That's all for your hot stove update. After the break, Lou's ready to share her fun play of the week.
Where you go to college makes a statement about you. This place will become a part of you, your identity for life. The University of Kansas, a great place to be you.
Hey, me again, back with the fun play of the week. And with one of the biggest sporting events in the world well underway, let's take a look at the World Cup and more specifically the goal from Christian Pulisic that sent the United States to the round of 16 after securing a win over Iran. The matchup last Tuesday looked to be more of the same in the early going as the U.S. struggled to break down Iran's defensive wall. But no one could question Pulisic's commitment or bravery in putting the U.S. on top in the 38th minute. Let's take a look.
Scores! Might have paid the price, but
colliding with the Iran goalkeeper and suffering an injury that left him wincing in pain, he slowly carried on for the rest of the half but eventually had to be substituted. Pulisic was the hero of the game but paid a price for the tally. This just in, moments ago, Pulisic did announce that he is cleared and able to play tomorrow, so we will see him on the pitch tomorrow. Since making his debut for the U.S. versus Guatemala on March 29, 2016, Christian Pulisic has combined to 22 goals and 11 assists, the most of any other player in the span. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central Time, the United States is set to square off against the Netherlands. The winner will move on to face either Argentina or Australia. That's all I have for our fun play this week, but let's head to Gus, who is here with the real definition of football in this week's High School Roundup.
The state championships have concluded for Kansas high school football, and that means an exciting 2022 football season has in fact come to an end. Ultimately, after 2 overtimes, Manhattan concluded its undefeated season with a 21-20 victory against Gardner Edgerton at Emporia State University last Saturday afternoon to win the Acacia Class 6A state championship. The Trailblazers struck first midway through the second quarter, courtesy of a 1-yard touchdown run, but the Indians came back 3 minutes later and tied the score at 7 apiece on an 80-yard touchdown drive right before halftime. Gardner Edgerton retook the lead at 14-7 early in the third quarter and maintained that lead heading into the final 12 minutes with the hopes of pulling off the upset championship victory. However, Manhattan tied things up at 14-all after a 9-yard touchdown run on the outside with just under 5 minutes in regulation. After each team could not break the tie in the fourth quarter, they settled to play it out in overtime, and both teams felt battle-tested heading into sudden death play, knowing that their 3-month-long season was going to all come down to this. So following a stop on 4th and goal by the Indians defense to start out overtime, Manhattan came back out on offense and attempted to kick a 38-yard field goal, but it was no good, and we played on the 2 overtimes. Then on the next offensive drive for Manhattan, Gardner Edgerton almost turned them over on downs, but Jason Sanchez just was not able to get across the goal line, and in fact, they were not able to get inside the pylon, and that in fact led to what was an unfortunate ending for that drive. Again, they kept going throughout, and then eventually neither team was able to really break through much, but in the end, in double overtime, it was Manhattan who got the win, 21-20 in the end. It was definitely someone to be remembered for sure. Manhattan getting the state championship victory, obviously them being undefeated all season long. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the High School Roundup. I want to thank you all for tuning in all season long for this High School Roundup. So now we'll head to Claire Decatur, who has a little look on Dave Armstrong's career as a Kansas basketball announcer.
This Monday, the Jayhawk men's basketball team might have walked out with a victorious win against Texas Southern, but they lost a KU radio icon. Dave Armstrong, who has been a broadcaster on the Jayhawk network since 1993, announced his retirement at the game. So, when did Armstrong's career begin? Armstrong attended John Brown University in Arkansas and majored in broadcasting. He began his career working radio and TV in the Midwest, and then he hopped around Kansas a bit. He worked as the program director in Chanute, then to Hayes, and then to the big city of Wichita. During his time in Wichita, he started doing play-by-play for professional soccer and other college sports. His career started to take off when he started doing play-by-play for the Big 8, now the Big 12, for Raycom Sports. Then, finally, in 1993, he joined the Jayhawk network for the Kansas Jayhawks. He joined the professional world later in 1993 as the voice of the Major League Baseball team, the Kansas City Royals, until 1995. His first year with the Royals was definitely a special one because it was George Brett's last year on the team. After the Royals, he had 6 seasons with the Colorado Rockies from 1996 to 2001. While in Colorado, he filled in for play-by-play for the Denver Nuggets in 1996 to 2001. He also announced in the NFL Seattle Seahawks season in 1992 and for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2009. He will forever be remembered for his signature statement, "Wow," that was created Danny Manning's freshman year at KU. It started at Allen Fieldhouse when point guard Cedric Hunter threw an alley-oop pass that Danny Manning then dunks at the top of the glass. While announcing, Armstrong let out a loud "wow" that has now been his catchphrase ever since. Armstrong has for sure left his mark on the sports broadcast world, and we will definitely miss his voice at KU games. That's all we have for this week's 2-Minute Warning. Now to Lily to close us out.
Well, Playmakers, that's all we have for today, and that was our last show this semester, but sports continue to go on, and we will have an update on our winter sports and a look into our spring sports when we come back in January. But for now, have a happy and safe holidays, and remember, it's not about the games you play, but the plays you made. Rock Chalk, and see you guys next semester.